You know that feeling on graduation day? The cap, the gown, the diploma, you're literally on top of the world. It's supposed to be the moment all that hard work finally pays off, the beginning of a whole new chapter. But what if that promise is starting to feel, well, a little broken for a lot of recent grads? Okay, let's get into it. So let me introduce you to Michael. Back in May 2025, he graduated from Villanova. His family's there, his friends are cheering him on. I mean, he was ready to take everything he'd spent 4 years learning and finally put it to work in the real world. You could just feel the excitement. But, fast forward a few months, and that initial promise, it's slammed right into a pretty tough reality. Michael actually started his job search way back in November of 2024, and his word for it now, demoralizing. I mean, he's applying everywhere, and just getting that first interview has been a real struggle. And here's the thing, Michael's story, it's not just some one-off. What he's going through is really just a snapshot of a much bigger nationwide trend that's hitting a whole generation of young people who are trying to get their start. So you have to ask, right? Is this just one guy's bad luck? Or is there something bigger going on here? Something fundamental that's shifting in our economy? Well, if you look at the data, it's definitely pointing to the second one. Okay, get this. 10.4%. That was the unemployment rate for Americans aged 16 to 24 just this past September. And this isn't just a random spike either. This number has been creeping up and up since April of 2023. And that's what's so strange about this. If you just glance at the overall US job market, everything looks pretty good. Unemployment is low, but when you zoom in on young people, it's telling a totally different story. Young workers are having a much, much harder time. So what does all this really mean? Well, it points to something huge. We might be in the middle of a major shift, where that bachelor's degree, the thing that was always seen as the safest ticket to a good career, isn't the guarantee it used to be, especially if you're just starting out. Okay, so what's the big culprit here? What's behind this massive shift? Well, a lot of experts are pointing to one thing: artificial intelligence. It's totally rewriting the rules of the game, and it's hitting those entry-level jobs the hardest. So to really get this, there's this key idea called AI exposure. It's basically a measure of how many tasks in a job can be done, or at least helped by AI. Stuff like summarizing reports, basic coding, data entry, and yeah, you guessed it, the jobs with the highest exposure are almost always those junior entry-level positions. And the numbers, they really back this up. A study from Stanford found that since 2022, employment has dropped by 13% for people aged 22 to 25 who are in these highly AI-exposed jobs. Meanwhile, for older workers, or people in jobs that AI can't really touch, their numbers have stayed steady or even gone up. It's pretty clear who's feeling the squeeze. And we're not talking small potatoes here. This is huge. A projection from Goldman Sachs suggests that over the next 10 years, AI could potentially displace up to 7% of the entire workforce in the United States. Think about that. But hold on, it's not just about AI. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, for sure. But to see the whole picture, you've got to look at some of the other big economic forces that are going on right now. You've also got a classic, supply and demand thing going on. We've got more and more people earning college degrees, which is great, but the number of jobs that require those degrees isn't really growing at the same speed. So you end up with what some people call a glut of graduates, a ton of really qualified people, all fighting for a limited number of spots. And, experts are kind of split on this. Some are saying, hey, are these layoffs really about AI, or is this just companies correcting course after they went on those wild hiring sprees during the pandemic? They think companies just overhired and are now trimming the fat. But others are saying, nope, that adjustment period is over. What we're seeing now is companies strategically reorganizing for a future built around AI. Okay, so this all sounds a little doom and gloom, right? And yeah, it's tough out there. But this is not where the story ends. The conversation is really starting to pivot now, moving towards adaptation. How can young people not just get by, but actually succeed in this brand new world? But here's the flip side. This is where the opportunity is. Because while some of those old entry-level jobs might be fading, a whole new category is popping up. Since just 2023, there's been a 5-fold increase in job postings that specifically ask for AI skills. Companies are actively searching for young talent who know how to use these new tools. So what can you actually do about it? Well, the advice is pretty clear. First, you've got to develop what people are calling AI fluency. That means learning the tools, getting good at prompting them, and figuring out how to make them a part of your work. And second, Network, network, network. Things like internships and just personal connections are becoming more critical than ever to make yourself stand out from the crowd. And look, if this trend keeps up, the ripple effects could be huge for everyone. We could be looking at bigger gaps in income, which can lead to more political unrest and calls for things like income redistribution. Not to mention, it affects the whole economy, from how much tax money comes in to how much people are able to spend. But let's end by coming back to Michael. Even after this incredibly frustrating job search, he's still optimistic. He actually said he thinks these hard times will create stronger, more resilient people who won't take their careers for granted. It's a really powerful dose of hope in the middle of all this uncertainty. And all of this, it really leaves us with one big important question we all have to think about. As AI keeps changing pretty much everything about how we work, we have to ask ourselves, is our education system actually ready? Is it preparing the next generation for the jobs that are going to exist tomorrow, not the jobs that existed yesterday? That's the real question.